Hello and welcome to another edition of Michigan Conservative Roundtable. Today we're going to talk about education on a couple of levels. The first being the radical sex education programs that are being proposed and are actually, in fact, in some places in the country. And the failure of education on a federal and local level, the dumbing down of kids to, it's for the indoctrination purposes, I'll say.
The pitiful curriculum, we'll say.
Yes, Common Core and such. But I'm going to talk about, for a moment, the sex education. A lot of people are appalled at what they're showing K through 12 kids. And these are minors, with the exception of maybe high school seniors at the end of their senior year. Montgomery County, Maryland is running a program called Protect Yourself. This program and many others are also proposed and funded by Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. Neither are a friend to America, in my opinion, especially the ACLU. The last thing they are is for civil liberties of Americans. They're a leftist organization looking to destroy us. But they're running this program called Protect Yourself. Parents are outraged. Complaints fall on deaf ears. They show a video called Protect Yourself, and I imagine you could find that on YouTube if you want to take a look at it, that depicts a very young woman putting a condom on a cucumber for obvious purposes. Much of this curriculum that they're running in Montgomery County, Maryland, is very slanted to be pro-homosexual, LGBTQ kind of things. They have, and this is around the country, they have these story time with drag queens because they want to normalize these things. That's not normal for a man to want to dress up as a woman and pretend he's a woman. In California, they have adopted a radical sex education program that encourages all sorts of progressive ideas, such as gender identity and gender fluidity, and how you really don't know whether you're a male or a female. They use graphic illustrations of male and female genitalia for their demonstrations. They even have a book called All You Need to Know About Sexuality, a guide to get you through your teens and 20s. It offers a how-to guide on bondage and anal sex. Anal sex is a perversion. It's not part of sex for reproductive purposes, certainly.
Well, if you believe in the Bible, the city of Sodom was destroyed.
Right. The parents, and grant you, they had an 8,000 person petition. 8,000 people in California is not much. Really tells me how much people care. But it fell on deaf ears. They didn't care. There's no opt-out for your kid. You can't say, I don't want my child in that program. They're in. And again, the ACLU and Planned Parenthood are behind this. Part of that program talks about, there's a quote I read, if you don't have money or don't have time to buy sex toys, a cucumber, a carrot, and a banana with the peel on, as long as you use a condom, make fine dildos. Does a fifth grader need to know what a dildo is and what it's for? I mean, really? In Colorado, again, we find they got a House Bill 1032 in Colorado that encourages virtually every type of sexual exploration.
You know, Mac, I feel like this is a result of parents not doing their job at home. And you know what? It's sad to say, who's to even say whether or not both parents are even present to do what is needed? Thank goodness, I'm thankful that my mom and dad were married, and I grew up in your conventional home, mother and father, and I had an excellent father figure to learn from. Unfortunately, in this situation, so many times the father is absent to instill decency and morality in anyone, and and that's assuming the father's there. The mother also, the mothers aren't teaching their daughters how to be young ladies. I mean, if people understand that term. So a lot of this curriculum comes from poor parenting at home. And there's the assumption, well, they're going to do it anyways. We just need to show them how to do it safe, so as to at least they'll be safe when they're doing it. And that's the assumption that the assumption that they're just going to do it anyways, and indirectly you end up condoning it nonetheless.
Yeah, it's as your one of your favorite terms, tacit approval.
Yes.
By not condemning it, you approve of it. I couldn't agree more that it begins and ends with the parents, to the degree that your child's education is your responsibility. It's not the school board, it's not the state level, it's not the national level. In fact, I would tell you, if I had a magic wand that Barack Obama talks about, I would go on with the Department of Education, because it's completely unnecessary. Education needs to be done on a local level, and I would encourage anybody out there who doesn't like any of the things we're talking about or how education is going, take yourself down to your county clerk or your city clerk and run for election on school boards, because we can turn all this leftism around, if it isn't too late, by getting ourselves elected to the school board. I just looked into this locally, and I just missed the deadline, unfortunately, by about 2 weeks. I was going to do that. It's got to stop. These schools are indoctrination centers for leftist degenerates, teaching kids anal sex. I mean, what is that?
Well, I understand not everyone has the opportunity to go to, and I'm going to first say private schools, but so many churches run their own Christian schools, and I understand they're not cheap. If that's the case, you got charter school programs. I'm kind of a charter school advocate, actually, if that's what it takes to get away from this nonsense. But a lot of people have resorted to homeschooling because well, you know what? They're doing their job. They're doing their job and keeping their children away from that insanity there.
Well, I think you would agree that in this society as a whole, we hand off far too many of our responsibilities to other people.
Yeah. Laziness. I don't want to be
too
bothered.
busy.
Yeah, this, that,
they got the kids in
they get paid to
soccer,
do
basketball. Yeah, it's their job. Well, they're taking your responsibility and doing what they want with it. They're not helping your kids learn anything. We're both fans of a man named David Ramsey, who is a financial advisor who believes, and correct me at any point if you think I'm not accurately portraying his views, he believes in not spending more than you have. It's a very conservative program, and not having any debt, and not using any credit. There isn't anything that you can't get that you can't pay cash for, including a house. I would encourage anybody out there to look this gentleman up and start following that plan. I think that plan ought to be taught in schools. Because I'll tell you what could have been avoided if it were taught in schools. These people having hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for their education. A lot of them would have looked for vocations rather than the degree that it becomes useless because it's perhaps in women's studies or world religions. And I'm not degrading that there's not any value in those studies, but they're not going to get you a job.
A lot of schools have ceased, in their curriculum, have ceased a true economics class or even a true government class. When I was in high school, every year I had a history class of some sort, and then the one year in lieu of history was a government class where we actually learned how the government worked, step by step through all the branches. And clearly that's not being taught in these schools now.
Well, to pick on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she was elected, and by the way, I want to mention something here. She won her seat basically with a 4% of the people in New York in her district voting in a primary. She ran unopposed. There was no Republican to run. They don't waste their time. So all you have to do is win the primary and you're elected. She knocked out a long-term Democrat who may well have been the Speaker of the House with 4%. She has no clue how the government works. She, right out of the gate, said she was going to be signing laws and how she was going to be inaugurated, neither of which the president, they pass the laws, the president signs them into law or can veto them. She doesn't have a clue how this government works, yet there she is in Congress.
Well, again, anyone who understands the basics of economics will immediately see the failure of communism or socialism.
Right.
So that's why I was saying, that the school doesn't even, they've taken economics, thrown it out, and said, this here, communism, the feel-good socialism in its place.
Well, I think going back to the Ramsey plan, one of the things you're going to learn there is it's going to red flag you to what the government does. You're going to say, hey, here I am, I'm debt-free, I'm managing my money, but these people over here, they're spending money hand over fist because they have an endless supply of it. People would start holding their government accountable. They'd hold every facet, they'd hold their doctor accountable. Did I really need 16 x-ray on my cracked finger? Because you understand money doesn't grow on trees.
I haven't sat in a classroom lately, but I remember when I was in elementary, junior high, senior high, every morning we got up and like the first thing we did, business thing of the day, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. And I dare say that's not happening a whole lot anymore. That's what our education has devolved.
Well, why would they want to pledge allegiance to a flag that's for racism and sexism and homophobia and all the other nonsense they say it's about, which it isn't? I remember when I was a ninth grader, I had gone up to parochial school for the first 8 years, and I went to a public high school. And one of the things I noticed first when I was in the ninth grade, and I was way ahead of a lot of the other kids, education-wise. The thing I noticed is that they had a textbook called Democracy in America. So many people in this country believe that we are a democracy, which is nothing more than majority rule on every topic. It's not how this country is run. We're a constitutionally limited republic. It limits what the Bill of Rights limit what the government can do to us as individuals. Not as a mob. And the more people continue to believe that we're a democracy, the more they're going to think the Electoral College is useless. That's another topic.
Which, by the way, this was discussed in my government class when I was in high school. Okay, so
I had an understanding in high school, actually as an eighth grader, as to what the Electoral College was for. Ask 10 people on the street how many people are on the Supreme Court. They won't know. How many senators does each state get? How many representatives does each state get? They won't know. I believe so many police shootings have happened because people don't understand the law. Those are the kind of things I think economics need to be taught, and how to live needs to be taught. Really, that again should be at home, but we know parents are irresponsible. So rather than teaching about what you can do with a banana or a cucumber, I'd really like to see people able to change a light bulb. And I read recently that 82% of millennials don't know how to change a light bulb. How are we going to make important decisions about our country and our society if people don't even know how to change a light bulb? And
I have some additional thoughts here.
Please.
All right. In my line of work, it involves a whole lot of report writing, and what I did on occasion was I would give someone a piece of paper and a pen, and just tell them to any given situation write down what happened. I was literally astonished that so many people didn't have the ability to take pen and put on paper coherent, correctly constructed, grammatically constructed sentences, the penmanship, the overall and here's where it was really sad. These were college students. Okay, we're not even talking high school anymore here. These guys, in fact, one guy says, uh, yeah, it kind of doesn't look like I'm in college here, doesn't it? I says, well, what are you learning there? You know, and it's what for instance, I was talking to one guy who all he had was a high school education out of Detroit, and I told him, I said, this is what you need to do. I said, you need to practice writing skills, because he had poor penmanship. I have to wonder if he was even taught correctly how to write. And I told him, I said, you need to practice writing out the alphabet. I said, and then you need to read. Read whatever you can get your hands on, and in that regard, anything of classical literature will help. You know, just and if you got to have a dictionary next to the book you're reading, so be it. But that's what I told the guy. I said, you know, your high school failed you, but now it's on you to kind of regroup. And
His parents failed him as well.
Yeah, you know, high school failed you, parents failed you. This is what you can do to improve. I told him, this is what you do to improve your lot in life. Whether or not he heeded my advice, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever talk to the guy again. So who knows what he's moved on to. But even for those who say we're less fortunate, that's how you get around. That's kind of how you can kind of get around it. You know, read some good, deep political commentary. And then you see the context of the words, how they were used, you know, that kind of stuff. So
Essentially what Lincoln did for himself.
So, and you know what, that's what I've done for myself, and that's what I encourage people I interact with when I see what I see. I, as politely as possible, say, hey, you know what, why don't you try this and do this or that, and then next thing you know, their quality of work improves, and that works for me.
Right. I worked in the same field as you do still, and I did the same thing. I would encourage people to know why they believe what they believe. So many people don't know why they believe what they believe. And we were offset talking about people who hate the president. And why do you hate him? Well, he's a liar. Well, why is he a liar? Well, because he is. And that's the extent of their argument. Oh, and you're a racist and a homophobe and an Islamophobe, and you need to be shut down. Those are their arguments, because they don't have any way to understand how to do research.
One final thought, and I meant to say this earlier, and it just now came to me. Computers have not really helped.
No.
Microsoft Word program fixes all your grammatical errors, fixes your spelling. If you have a sentence fragment, it kind of pops up with that green thing underneath. Misspelling's red, and then you know, well, what do people do? They see the suggestion and say, oh, I'll go with that. You know, so you know, and yeah, computers have been like really helpful for us here. You know, but Microsoft Word, as good as it was intended and as good as it is, there are some side effects to even that, and you know, and this is why people don't know how to write. You know, that's why I always gave them a blank sheet of paper and a pen and told them to write something, because I wanted to see what their abilities were.
Well, you know, as a young person, and this was long ago, when we started using the international symbols for everything, like, you know, don't walk with a line through it, or a deer crossing or whatever, I thought, this isn't going to help people. It's going to, you know, they said, well, it's for people who can't read. And I always, even as a young person, said, well, wouldn't it be better for them to learn to read rather than to lower the standards for everything? So, yeah, we'll wrap it up today. Those are our thoughts on sex education in America and overall education in America that is failing horribly.
And we're going to suffer for it too.
We are suffering for it. What people don't know will hurt you. So, as we like to say on the Michigan Conservative Roundtable, be safe, watch your six, and don't tread on me.